Hey guys, Dan here.
And Frank. And we have some guests here with us today. We have Pat McEvoy and Mac McClintock of Titanic Creations, and they're the creative team behind Gorgo Legacy, which should be coming out soon. We'll let these guys take over and tell us a little about themselves first, though.
Uh, Go
I'll
ahead.
get back to you. Go first. You go first,
Oh,
Patrick.
oh, oh, okay. It's me first. I'm Patrick McEvoy. I am an artist. I do illustration and comics art and pretty much anything that keeps me off the street. And I have been doing comics with Mac now for going on a couple of years here. We did the Soul War graphic novel based on Mac's original Kaiju creations from Titanic, and now we've just completed the Gorgo Legacy graphic novel, and that's going to be having a crowdfunding very soon in a couple of weeks, and we're real excited about that. And I do all the art, the drawing, inking, coloring, lettering, and co-writing with Mac. And we are pretty darn happy with the way things have gone so far. So we're hoping to really get this out to everybody. And the end by Patrick
Yeah,
McEvoy.
yeah. I mean, I've seen some of the concept art that you've put out, some of the finished pieces and unfinished pieces, and what you've shown so far looks incredible. And if it's anything compared to Soul War, I'm sure it's gonna be a great read.
Thanks. Thanks.
All right, Mac, tell us a little
Yeah.
about yourself.
So I'm McClintock. I'm the person who runs most of Titanic Creations. We started this back in 2018, making the first Titanicus figure, and we grew that line into four kind of vinyl figures, which were great. And then soon after that, in 2023, we worked out a deal to make a licensed Gorgo figure, which you can see behind Dan there. It's
Yeah.
probably our best selling figure we've ever had, and that really kind of led us into this position where we were able to make a Gorgo comic book and all these other fun things with Gorgo, and continue to kind of grow down that line of these obscure kind of 60s monsters, that which we've continued to do with Young Gary, that's currently on our site, and coming back to Gorgo Legacy, which will go up in May.
That's great. I mean, yeah, we're big Gorgo fans. It's one of the first movies we covered on this channel. We both grew up with, we only had so many kaiju VHSs, and it was just always a struggle finding the movies on VHS or any sort of media. And like Gorgo was just one of those ones that was there, and we watched it a lot. And
Yeah, it was like that video
it's still one of my
store, just always
favorites.
available type of movie.
Yeah, I don't know if Dan has it or if it's still at my parents somewhere.
It's
The
still
old
there.
it's still there. It's still at our parents' house. But I was really happy when you picked up Gorgo last year, and you had Bad Frank doing that awesome cover art. Pat's artwork on the comic looks incredible, and now you're picking up Yangare, Pulgasari, I believe you have coming too. So I really like seeing these obscure kaiju that don't get the spotlight as much as Godzilla or Gamera or Kong getting some spotlight, and it's really cool to see that the fans are coming out and getting them, because where else could you get a Gorgo figure until now? I mean, next to
Right.
nowhere.
Basically,
And
before we, it's,
no, you
it's
can,
gonna
you
piggyback off that, but yeah, before we did the Gorgo figure, there was one or two official license, I guess three. There was a little plastic figure that looked nothing like Gorgo from like the 60s. You could, like goes on eBay for about $80, and then there was the M1 Gorgo, but neither. And then there's also the model kit, but until we released that, really there was no action figure that accurately represented how Gorgo looked in the film.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I really do like the figure, and I kind of like the size of it. I'm really really tight on space, so having like an action figure size and not like a giant tower. Like everybody always tries to sell like the giant like super huge one, which you guys do have and collectors like, but for me, when I'm short on space, like I really like the 5 to 6 inch figure. That's really like my
Yeah. No, I'm in the same. I'm in the same space there too. I didn't get the regular Gorgo. I fluffed on that at the time, but I did get the Dicko one, which I'm really excited about because the colors on it, I feel like it gives me like Trendmaster vibes of like the old Trendmasters line. But it's perfect for the Dicko comics though. And I saw you posted that picture of it with the Marvel Godzilla figure, and I actually have one of those coming in also, and I'm like, oh. I can't wait to put these two next to each other now.
Yeah, I think they look so good together, especially in that photo, because they're kind of both that same light green color.
Yes.
And Patrick actually did the box art for that figure, so it's a really solid, nice looking piece.
Oh, I can't wait to see that. Yeah, I can't wait to get my hands on that.
Looks like a lot of fun. Yeah, we rejiggered the cover that's going to be the cover for the Gorgo graphic novel into the box art for that. And Mac had asked me when I was first doing the covers that, I think we're going to want to do it in a more comic booky style, so not a painted style like I often do covers. So it's more like the interior art, so that it ties in with the Ditko world. And make sure it is going to fit on a box as well as a comic. And very important, we need to include some of those weird Ditko jet planes.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. That's a staple.
I actually have the book right over here. The weird. It's like a. I don't even know what shape that is. But I love it. It's like so 50s sci-fi, that like feel.
Yeah. So I got 3 of those flying around on the cover. They don't show up in the book, unfortunately, but they're in everybody's hearts.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, that's really great. Yeah, I mean, speaking of Ditko and Mac throwing ideas at you, how did you guys meet? Like originally, and how did you first start meeting up and making comic books together? And does this comic have anything based off the Ditko? I know it's a prequel to the movie.
Right. Well, I don't know, Mac. Do you want to kick that
I'll
up?
take the first half of the question, and then Patrick, you want to take the second half, kind of talking more about the story. So the way me and Patrick started working together is, back in 2020, we were trying to figure out how to better promote our line of kaiju, right? We had an idea of the stories for a lot of them, right? Like Titanic is like the Titanic, Nosferodon's this like vampire kaiju, but it didn't have like, the whole lore behind it, right? And we started hearing a lot from people when they were buying our toys, like, well, these look really cool, but I don't have it, there's no story behind it. And so I was kind of sitting there like, okay, where the hell can I actually find someone to, illustrate this book? And because I can't draw my way out of a circle. So that wasn't going to happen anytime soon. So, and then I remembered I backed this book called World War Kaiju, and I was like, that artwork is great. Maybe I should just ask if that guy is available. So then I ended up hunting Patrick down on the internet, sent him an email, and then we had a Zoom call probably a week later, and then we just talked through it. And then he worked on that first book. It turned out really well, and then everything happened with Gorgo. We just kind of kept going, and it's been a really good partnership.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I backed World War Kaiju myself. World War Kaiju, but it was during a time where I never got to read it. So I literally just pulled it out a couple days ago, and I didn't realize it was you that made it. Honestly, it was so long ago. I mean, when was that?
2012, I want to say. When were you in college, Mac?
I believe
that's
read
right
that
when I
in
got
high
out of
school,
college.
actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it's 2012.
That's right when I got out of college.
That's right when I went in. Yeah.
So it was yeah, that was a really fun book. It's nice to
And
know
I
people
know you
remember it.
referenced Gorgo in there. I remember like being like, oh, there's a Gorgo reference in here, so I'm like, perfect. I'm like, I gotta pick
I
this
was,
up, but I've
I was doing
shamefully
a
not read
ton.
it yet.
I was doing a ton of kaiju, sort of our take on kaiju, and we were posting them on what was the thing that was big back then? That art site,
Deviant?
DeviantArt, and so I was posting all my concept for different kaiju that were all takeoffs on real monsters at the time, and yeah, one of them was Gorgo. I don't know if he made it into the book or you might have just seen the concept art
Maybe it
at the time
was.
because we were publicizing it with that because we were going to do a bunch of books. We only ended up ever doing the one, but yeah, my version of Gorgo, I had the picture of him kind of attacking London and flames and everything, but his deal because they were all kind of parodies of kaiju.
Yeah.
So his deal was I gave him a monocle. He's British,
Yes.
and that was because he had one laser eye, so that focused his laser eye.
Yes. I
But
remember
I
that
did him
too,
with
so.
the big Gorgo hands and everything. So yeah, that was a really fun thing, and it's nice that it got me and Mac in touch with each other eventually. So yeah,
That's amazing that book brought you two together. That's incredible. That's an awesome story. So, like I said, what is this prequel like? Where are we pulling from? I know the Ditko comics, they sort of redid the movie in the first issue,
hmm
and now this is a prequel. Is it a prequel to the movie? Is it its own thing? I heard mentions of a retcon somewhat.
well, Mac
I don't
sort of
know if
came up with the original story. Do you want to talk through that, or you want me to?
So it's a prequel to the movie and a sequel to Soul War, and
all right.
it's not in the continuity of the film, but the film is in the continuity of the book. If that makes
All right.
sense.
Okay.
Does
Makes sense.
So
Yeah, so we
it's
didn't change anything from the movie. So
all
you can
right.
read our book, and it'll take. Uh, it takes place, I guess, about 6 years before the movie. So there's uh, it's laying the groundwork, and I put in a few Easter eggs about what you see visually in the movie, uh, sort of how the island came to be looking the way it looks, and the other thing is that we introduced a lot of lore in Soul War. You
Yes.
know, this worldwide agency that keeps track of kaiju, and a few characters from that, and we use them as the sort of human framework for the story in this Gorgo prequel. So, in a
All
way, it's
right.
a retcon because it puts Gorgo into our universe, but it doesn't contradict anything that's in the Gorgo movie.
Yeah.
That's that's really cool. That if everybody watching right now has not read Soul War, I highly recommend it. Uh, it's a great book, and I know you guys still have it up on the site, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
yep, for sure. If
Yeah.
anyone wants
one
to
of
buy it,
yeah.
you definitely should.
It's a must read. I mean, I I don't know what I was expecting when I went into it, but I was like, this is like a really kind of dark story with the whole Holocaust thing going on. I don't want to give away too much about it, but wow, it was a pretty heavy story too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an incredible collaboration. Really, that's one of my better collaborations I've had.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun to write and to do the whole thing.
And the way like so, I'm not gonna go too crazy with the Solar Wars here, but it was like just you tied together like what was it like three different stories going on. Like there was kind of separate groups like Wolf had his own thing. Then you had the whole other crew with the Nazis in Egypt. Then Titanicus was doing his own thing. There was a lot going on, but you weave that story incredibly together. I was like, this could be a movie. It could be a TV series or something. I was like, this.
I think it would make a great movie.
It would make an incredible movie.
Yeah, like one of the things that I'm a bit excited about was one of my critiques of Gorgo all the time is that all the human characters in that movie are absolutely despicable. So I'm always like, when I heard about the comic book, I'm like, I hope we get a Gorgo story with actual characters that I care about, and there's actual, like, it's not just monster destroying the city and a bunch of people getting what they deserve, but like an actual like real narrative. So when I was like, oh yeah, good, we're getting an actual Gorgo, real deal.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah,
thing,
I think really has been working on all these books. It's so important, like when writing kaiju books, that these human characters like actually matter to the plot. But I think so often you read and watch these kaiju movies, and the humans could die, and it doesn't really impact the plot at all, right? And I think that's the critique a lot of people have watching a lot of these films, is where it just feels like, they're like the people to point and look like, oh look, right? So
no, you're absolutely right. I mean, just like in Soul War, I mean, the humans really carried that story. I mean, the kaiju were fantastic in there, but the humans were a major aspect of that story. So definitely looking forward to that in this book. Like Dan said, I don't remember it as a kid watching, because I was just a kid watching Gorgo. I see the monster on the screen, but we did a couple of rewatches of it recently, and I'm like, these people are all terrible. Even the kid in that movie is terrible. Like, he abandons practically his adoptive father. He's like, peace, I'm going on with these guys on the boat. Like, the guy's been taking care of him for years. And he's just like, nope.
Yeah. I guess the old ferry boat captain guy isn't so bad.
Yeah.
Trying to think. Yeah, you're right. It was, yeah.
It's pretty funny. And then, I was just like reading up on trivia for the movie, and I'm like, there's only a scene that's about, I think, 30 seconds long with two women in it. There's only two women that have like 30 seconds of dialogue the whole movie too. And I'm like, this is a little timely movie.
Yeah. It was quite a sausage party. So,
yeah.
Unfortunately, ours does not have a lot of really of women characters either. So I can't take the high road too far on that one.
But we do have a main character who is a female. That does happen.
This is true. This is true. One of the main characters is female, right? So that is a very good point. Yeah, we had a bit more of a, I would say, a straightforward writing process on this one than we did on Soul War. It was kind of funny. We were kind of getting to know each other a little and getting to know which directions we wanted to go with the writing on Soul War, and Mac was doing it sort of in tranches. He would, send me 30 pages or whatever, and then I would. That's the way we generally work. He'll send me pages that are sort of written like a movie script, and I'll take those and sort of rewrite it here and there and add some plot things, and so I would get the stuff from him, and then I would add a bunch of stuff, send it back to him, and he'd say, "Oh, look what he added," and do the next 30 pages based on that. And I go, "Oh, look what he did," and I add stuff, and it was a great back and forth. But we didn't do as much of that on Gorgo. I think we had pretty much the whole, at least the rough outline of the thing, all 60 pages was done. Soul War is 180 pages, so it's a lot more plot to do. But that gave us a little more chance to improvise. Gorgo was a little more of a tight, straight through. So, yeah. interesting difference in how we approach those. Like in Soul War, at one point there was this character who got killed off almost right away, and I said, "Oh, he could have been an interesting character," and I just kept him alive and kept using him, and sent it to Mac and said, "Hey, Mac, this guy's pretty cool. Why don't we do something with him?" And next thing you know, he sends me back the next thing. It's like, "Oh, he's the main character now." So that was pretty cool.
Oh god.
As far as the creative process for this, it seems like you guys had a lot of rope to play with. Did the people licensing Gorgo, did they have any like, don't do this with the story, don't do that, or were they kind of like, do whatever you want, whatever sells comic books?
So on this book, really, it is connected to the film, but this is not the film Gorgo in the book. This is the comic Gorgo. So this is actually the public domain version of
the
character that
great.
you see in the book. Even though it looks very similar to the monster in the film, they are completely different characters. And even though the film is watchable after the book, it is not mentioned specifically in the book. So legally, just
good.
But
not good. So you guys can do whatever you want. Doesn't matter.
Right.
It's no constraints. They're just getting the pure story, whatever you guys wanted to do,
right.
Which is great. Yeah.
Yep.
That's really awesome that you have that freedom then. I mean, like, I know back in the Ditko Comics, Gorgo, like, fought aliens, armies, and stuff. I know in the Titanic Creations universe and the Soul War universe, there's not really any aliens yet. Are we going to see... I mean, I don't want to get too carried away with spoilers here, but is there any chance of crossover with anything else? I mean, I know we see a giant octopus in the concept art you've shown. Gorgo's father is something new that's being introduced.
Mm-hmm. Two of the Titanic Creations original kaiju are aliens, so there's definitely some aliens that could show up at any point. We can do anything we feel like.
All right.
And I think
oh, I'm sorry.
Just kind of speaking about this book, a lot of what we focused on was like the Ditka book. So much of it is Cold War stuff, just because of the time period.
Yeah.
And we roped that in, right? And then the giant squid kraken was supposed to actually show up in the original Gorgo film, but was scrapped due to budget cuts. So we bring in these things that it still feels like it's a Gorgo book while living in the Soul War universe.
Yeah, we've got a lot of Cold War intrigue going on, so anyone who's into that old that paradigm is going to have a lot of fun.
Oh man, this sounds so good. You guys are making me really excited about this book. I mean, I was already in, but now you really got me.
Yeah, I think that's like probably one of the better parts of like the American kaiju stuff was that it kind of leaned a little bit more into like the Cold War like weird sci-fi stuff versus like the Japanese kaiju where it's kind of way out there as far as like we don't have an enemy, but like we have all these different aliens. We're gonna get invaded by aliens 20 million times, or we're gonna have like a weird octopus alien. It's I feel like the American kaiju stuff was a little bit more grounded in current event stuff, at least at the time. So yeah, I like that. It's going to be kind of a throwback to there.
I could be wrong, but my feeling was always the Japanese didn't want to piss off the Russians. They're pretty close to them, yeah. And the Americans were like, "Oh, can we piss off the Russians? Let's do it."
That too, yeah. The movie's part of their little Cold War.
Yeah.
It's propaganda at the end, right? Oh boy, yeah. So, what did I want to ask you? So with Gorgo's father, that's a cool concept. Who came up with that?
Oh,
that was Pat.
That was Mac. Wait, was it? No, I thought it was you.
No. So what happened was Patrick did the first sketch of the dad, and he made a very astute point that if we have them both look the exact same, no one's going to know which one is which. And then he drew a fin on top, and I'm like, just make it colorful, and then we'll be good to go.
I really like the design.
Oh, it's so.
Is there like any plans of a figure for that, or is that like a we'll see how the comic book does?
I think it's some of both because my just kind of a business standpoint here, so not the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Doing a different head, right? Of that, it's one piece, right? Because you have the Gorgo figure there, right? The head's already removable. We could do a whole new Gorgo dad figure, and we're just having to make a new head. So it's very doable. And then I think what we also want to do is if the book does well, we also want to do a Kraken figure so that they could duke it out in a set together. Yeah.
Oh,
So
That would be really
I'd like to see that.
That sounds like an awesome figure set. Oh boy! Wow.
I've released a little bit of art on my page that I know you guys have seen, and I think Mac has kind of shown some of the same pictures on the Titanic Creations site, and it's got another smaller Kraken that's a little more like a regular squid. But if people have seen that art, it's the real Kraken that shows up later is very different. So I think it's going to make a really nice surprise when people see it, and I think it would make a good toy eventually.
Yeah,
it's like we've lost somebody.
No, he'll be good. He's good. He's there. Don't worry about it. He'll fix that in the post. Yeah, the Kraken concept is cool. It's like they left it out in Gorgo. They left it out in the Frankenstein Conquers the World. I don't know. The Kraken always gets the short end of the stick. But
that's true. They could just do it like Ed Wood in that movie. Have flop around with
Yeah, so I know when I was talking to you when we first made contact about getting together for this, you had mentioned, Pat, that you were watching Gorgo a ton while working on this book. How many times do you think you watched it while working on the book?
I probably... between when Max said the books would go and he got me the first, iteration of the script, I think I watched it 3 times there. And I watched... Then after I got the script, I watched again, just get the flavor of it, get it into me. But then I kept, as I was, doing the sketches and the layout and the, final writing and everything, I kept going back to different parts of the movie and watching those over and over again. So if I were to count all of that, I've probably watched about 10 or 12 times.
Wow.
Because I just watch little parts. It's like how I read the first 3 Game of Thrones novels. I was working on a collectible card game for Fantasy Flight back in the day. Called Game of Thrones, and that was before the TV show came out. So it was popular, but only with a certain segment of the population. And anyway, they would send me, do this particular character, do that, just they wouldn't really give me much of anything to go by. Usually it wasn't a particular action, it was a particular character. And so I'd ask, well, how do I do that? I have no idea what they're like. So I had found a place where I could find where characters were introduced in the book online, and I just said, it's page 118 of book 2. So I'd go to there, I'd read that chapter, and do the thing. By the time I was done, I had read almost all 3 of the first novels completely out of order. Chapter. That's kind of how I was watching Gorgo while I was working on it.
That's great. No, that's a cool way to. That's a cool process, though. It's not. I like to see what the process is with the artists that we bring on here, and the way that they work together with the writers and everything. That's really cool. That's really cool.
Right. A lot of fun.
Yeah.
I have a better job than most people. I will never complain. I could be digging a ditch or anything, virtually anything else.
So, when exactly do we have a firm date on the campaign and where it's gonna be yet? Is it gonna be on the Titanic Creations website?
So it will not be. This one is actually going to go up May 23rd on Zoop. So Zoop is a crowdfunding website specifically made for comic books. They usually put out a new book every month or so, and really we talk with them. They offer to do a lot of help for us, including printing the book and a lot of the stuff that is things I don't want to deal with, like we did in Civil War. And so working with them is really helpful. And the biggest thing is they don't take on every project like Kickstarter. So they only bring on projects they know are going to be completed and they're going to ship. So like when you go over there and you're going to purchase the book, you don't have to worry about, well, if this gets funded, is the guy going to flake out? And, like so many Kickstarters end up doing where no one gets anything. So really they over there at Zoop, they do a great job of producing the book, promoting our campaign, and they also set up the campaign page for us, so that's less stuff for me to have to sit down and do. And really, it's going to be a really great launching point there, and we hope for a long relationship with hopefully this first campaign being successful. And then if that works out, we want to do at least 2 more Gorgo books in the future.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's one of the next questions I was going to ask you is if you had plans for more. Because I know initially when you first made the whole announcement about acquiring Gorgo, you'd mentioned the figure, of course, and that you had mentioned the comic and possible sequels to the comic. Is there anything else attached to Gorgo that you have planned?
So if we ever sold a ton of books, I would really like to do an animated version of Gorgo, just because it's a lifelong thing I would always want to do. I don't know if that's ever going to work out because I don't really know if we can ever get the Gorgo fan base to be as strong as we need to be able to fund that. But really, these comic books, it's the way I look at it, it should be a 3-part arc. So it's really going to be the same length as Civil War, but broken up into 3 separate books, which is probably easier for people to digest than just sending them 180-page manifesto of lore.
Yeah.
Yeah, Soul War was great. It was a big book though, so like, I try to cram my comic books in during my lunch break, so I think that was like a 2-day read for me. But yeah, that is true. Yeah, it is kind of a bit chunky. What was it? You said 180 pages.
108 pages of story. It's not 108 pages with all the other stuff added. It was.
No, definitely.
Actually, we got up to it's a funny background info. We were planning on 125, I think. Something like that. And like I say, we were writing by just tossing ideas back and forth every few weeks. Like, okay, I did this part. Look at what I added. Oh, I did this part. Look what I added. And at some point, Mac took a step back. And I think we were probably around, I don't know, page 80 or 90 or something like that. And anyway, we might have been farther along than that, but he took a step back and said, there is no way we're finishing this story at 125. I need to add a few more pages. And like he took a step back, and I had a lot to do, so I said, okay, take your time, do it. And it was a while. It was a couple of months. It was not a matter of weeks. It was quite some time. He came back to me and said, well, we're going to do 160 pages. We're adding 30%.
Boy.
That was.
I think the issue we ran into when writing that first book is at some point you just start throwing ideas in, right? And I think this is actually probably, speaking of Game of Thrones, what Martin ran into at some point, is that you're growing a tree branch, right? And at some point, some of these branches need to die, or else you're just going to keep going and going, right? So I think it was just good. I had to sit back. I'm like, what is actually the climax of this book, right? Because at some point we would have ended up with does this end in 1950s at the Korean War? What was going? Where was the so? that was a big deal, and I think it was great that Patrick worked with me, and it worked out. The book got done, which is always half of the challenge with these to actually finish a book.
That's true.
And it was a fantastic book. It's right there behind there.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So when we start the crowdfunding on Zoop, obviously we're going to have some add-ons that you can buy with it, and one of them is going to be the Civil War graphic novel. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. What other add-ons might you have on there? Is there? I know we've done Zoop before. I believe we backed Kaijus and Cowboys issue 1. They did that on Zoop. Now, when you do Zoop, I haven't been.
It's been probably about a year and a half. What's it? Almost 2 years. Yeah, about 2 years.
So once it's done, the campaign, and everybody gets their comics, can you go back and buy it if you didn't fund it, or are you going to host it on your site to rebuy?
So I'm assuming, I haven't worked out the exact details with them, but my assumption is that we'll have copies that you'll be able to buy through Titanic Creations, and then also like conventions, which is 90% of our comic book business.
All right.
Anyways, so usually I think there'll be some of those, and then hopefully if this campaign is successful enough that we can actually find a distributor to actually get into a few stores, that would be the ideal situation.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, no, that would be great. Because even just from I've only seen a couple pictures from it, and it just looks amazing. I'm so psyched for the Gorgo story. Is there any plans of any other licensed kaiju comic books or anything else like that, or is it just gonna be mainly Gorgo going forward?
What I was thinking of, since this is the boring stuff of signing contracts and everything, is we would love if this book does really well to kind of, when you read the book, you'll understand this better, is where the Gorgos are going at the end of the book could maybe be Korea or somewhere like that, especially with what we're doing this year with Young Gary and Pogasari. It seems like a very good transition for where book 2 could talk about these monsters in that context. And then book 3 would be, the figures that come out in 2025. And then so the Gorgo 3-page arc would also end up being like a crossover thing with the other figures, and it's very much
really
kind of
cool.
like a toy play place, right? And like an obscure verse almost.
It's almost like what Boom is doing with IDW, Power Rangers, and Godzilla. You mashing those toys together and mixing what you did as a kid, right?
Right.
I like it. I like it.
They're doing the.
And the biggest thing talking about that is that we want to do all these fun things, but we're always one really crappy project away from not being able to do the next thing, right? So really helping us get this book off the ground and do well is the biggest step towards being able to do those other books.
Yeah, I think you guys are gonna kill it with this. I mean, Soul War was incredible, and it's Gorgo. I mean, we love Gorgo.
Yeah.
Comic books seem like they're just booming right now, so I feel like it's the perfect time for this story to be brought back and told in this new angle here. We're doing this prequel, and I like Dan referenced other kaiju. I know Reptilicus once crossed over in the Ditko comics, so then they recalled him Reptilosaur or something like that. So maybe could that be one of the ones in the 3rd issue, possibly? I don't know.
Mac's been
I don't want
trying to work on Reptilicus for a while.
Yeah, Reptilicus, the Florida man who owns the rights to Reptilicus. He's a not fun person to deal with.
All you had to start with was Florida man.
Yes.
We already knew.
We did. Once you said that, we were like, "Oh, okay." All right. So
But unlike
there's plenty of other ones. There's plenty of other ones. You got
unlike Reptilicus, I think Gorgo's actually a really good movie. I mean,
yeah,
it's not the best movie, but for what it was, for the budget, for what they had to go with, I mean, it's an impossibly good movie.
It is. It
is. It looks like
I always like the Rhinoceros from Beast in 20,000 Fathoms. That's another one that's really...
Yeah.
The giant behemoth.
Possibly the original kaiju movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's so many.
It and King Kong are kind of the...
Yeah, Rhinoceros. Yeah, right before Godzilla. I mean, it's arguable that people are like, "Oh, it ripped off Godzilla, ripped Rhinoceros off, or Rhinoceros ripped Godzilla off." You're like, "No, Rhinoceros was first." Yeah, I mean, there's so many monsters like the giant behemoth. There's so many things in the 50s, 60s that just don't get the attention that they deserve. And like, I mean, they weren't amazing movies, but like, they were still good movies. Like, you know, if you're a monster fan, they're just like, I don't know, it's like soul food almost, you know? It's just like, you just love it. Like, it's not perfect, but it's good.
And I think so much of these movies that don't get figures, one thing we found, especially with Gorgo and early on here with Young Gary, is so many people have these like visceral memories as kids of watching these movies, right? And like, it's especially people in their 50s and 60s, which is a really weird demographic to be selling toys to, but they have these like, it's like you wake up, like they send emails to me. I've even had some of them call because, you know, let's have people who are over the age of 60 communicate, and they'll just tell me like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen, and it made me back so many great memories of watching movies with my family. And it's really impactful how much these movies, even though they're not winning Oscars, but these films had impacts on people's lives that they feel like they haven't been recognized or looked at in a major way.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons, like, you know, the -1 Oscar win was just like so heavily celebrated. It's like, we got a monster movie to win big finally. Like, you know, the monster fans like us it was just, besides it being a great movie, it was just like, you know, like, we gotta win, you know? We finally got one. It got recognized. I mean, a lot of them just get considered as like cult films, and you're like, sure, maybe we're a cult of monster fans here, but you know what? We love it. We want people to know that we love it, and everyone else should be checking this out. I mean, it's not just for us.
Right.
That was exciting. That was incredible. I didn't even believe it was happening.
I didn't either. I was like, they gotta win this. I was watching it. I just kept, you know, I wasn't into the Oscars, so I just kept going back and forth. I'm like, all right, I think it's coming up next. And then I put it on right in time. I was watching something else on, I don't know, it was Netflix or something. I'm like, let me stop. I'm like, I think it might be coming on soon. And sure enough, I had put it on like the perfect time. And when they announced it, I was just like, yes. And then I stopped watching after they gave the speech. And I'm like, yep, that's all I wanted. I don't care about anybody else.
Oppenheimer won everything else. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. Yeah. Oppenheimer or Barbie was all that was talked about that year. I mean, besides among the community, Godzilla was going nuts, but I'm just happy about that one.
I think they could have paid for Godzilla with about 10 minutes of Barbie budget.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
I did not watch that one.
No, I haven't had time.
It wasn't bad. It looked great. It really had a look to it. And I finally just saw Oppenheimer. I felt obligated culturally, you know, so I would not be ignorant the rest of my life. And actually, that was a good movie. I have to say.
I mean, I'm sure.
Terrible soundtrack.
Terrible soundtrack.
Terrible.
I did. Oppenheimer, I don't understand the soundtrack. Maybe it's just above me or something. It went over my head. You can't hear anybody saying anything. It's an insanely bad sound design to me.
I,
But it might have been what he was going for. Probably was. I didn't get it. But otherwise, it was a great movie.
Oh,
oh man.
And 10 minutes of that movie could have paid for Godzilla, most
Yeah,
of the actors.
and that was a long movie too, right? I don't know.
That's
I didn't get
true.
to see it.
like 3.5
Yeah, a
hours.
lot of these long movies, I'm just like, I don't have the time to watch that.
Yeah, I know. It's with the kids now. It's very difficult. I'm like, I rely on my lunch break at work to do my media cramming, whether it's a movie, TV, comics. I'm like, I got an hour here. I'm like, I'm not gonna get a whole movie. I'll get half of a movie or most of a movie. it's
You need to
tricky.
use the Netflix ×2 speed to really
Yeah.
start knocking things out.
1.5. They took a little faster, right? Yeah.
I stay up with some TV series on Netflix and whatnot. If I take a look at it and it looks like it's not a very visual thing, I'll just set it playing in the background while I'm drawing and kind of listen to it. And then if something comes up where someone says, "Wow, look at that amazing thing," I'll stop and go look at it.
Yeah, I had a coworker who has a friend that drives all over the place, and he's like, he watches things on his phone while he's driving. Instead of having his GPS up, he has his phone up there, and he's just watching Netflix all day. He's like, he literally watches everything.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's
I hope he's
insane.
watching something good when he dies.
I know. I'm like, I'm like, your friend's nuts, man. I'm like, that does not sound safe.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine.
Oh,
No, not around here.
No.
Ugh.
I have known artists who say they actually keep the picture on the corner of their screen and actually have they're watching stuff while they're doing art, and I can't understand that personally.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
you're like, how do you go
I'm-
cross-eyed? What?
yeah, I can't draw to save my life, but I cannot imagine watching something and trying to draw at the same time.
No, I don't have the brain for that.
So, with the mention of the sequels here, have you started working on them yet, or it's kind of you're waiting to see how this one does?
It's mostly waiting to see how this one does, and then, I mean, there's always ideas, right? That's always the easiest part, and then the hardest part is always getting me to sit down and actually type anything, right? Kind of. Anyone who's ever tried to write anything or a paper in high school, it's like
Oh yeah.
starting's always the hardest part, and then it's kind of like a
Yeah.
rock rolling downhill.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And like with a lot of campaigns, even like with the figures right now that you're in pre-ordering, like you've had like the stretch goals and milestones. Is there going to be stretch goals for this comic, like any sort of upgrades, add-ons, extras, or something like that?
Mostly, I think it's going to be paper add-ons. As far as that goes, we're talking like posters or other assets we already have, kind of on hand, and
All right.
kind of, it's not going to be like if we raise $10,000, we're going to throw 20 extra pages in,
No,
Right.
no,
Yeah,
definitely
no.
not that.
right? Because I know there's a lot of comic books that do that. I think World War Kaiju was like that when it went up, right?
Mhm.
But the issue for me is I am extremely paranoid of putting anything up for crowdfunding that I don't have a firm idea how it's going to get done, right? And also a timeline of like the 30 centimeter Gorgo that we had to do, because it took a little bit longer to get the 200 than I was originally anticipating. So we ended up taking that out to the end of December, and so that delayed it significantly because Chinese New Year is the end of January through February, so nothing gets done as far as production goes. So we got the funding for it, and then we weren't able to actually start, knocking stuff out for it until basically the beginning of February. So those aren't going to ship till May now. Both those and the comic book Gorgos are currently on a boat, so they should get here in 2 to 3 weeks. But
All right.
yeah, that's just kind of how those things happen, right? Is especially with production stuff. It's like if you want to get anything done between November and February, it's almost impossible.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and you do a pretty good job at keeping everybody up to date on the status of your projects and everything. So that's definitely appreciated by the fans and your customers too. Because, you know, like you said, you know, sometimes we do these crowdfunding things and we don't get updates. And you're like, where is this thing? Even just pre-ordering, like the Mezco Toys figure lines, like I've pre-ordered those, and it's kind of like you pre-order and forget you ordered it, and you just when it gets there, it gets there. They say it's coming in January, and it ends up at your house in October instead. It's, you know, but they give no updates though. So like there's companies like that, you know, but at least you're sending email updates constantly, every milestone you hit. You keep everyone pretty updated on Twitter, email. So you do a great job keeping your customers up to date.
I do be posting. That's how it goes.
Yeah, I'll always be posting. And it's a good point you mentioned with the crowdfunding, you know, versus work done. It's kind of interesting too. But this is the first time I've done crowdfunding on a book and gotten it all completely. I mean, everything is finished before the crowdfunding even starts. In the past, I think I've done 4 other crowdfunded graphic novels, and they've all been the the paradigm where we did, you know, just a few pages, like 5 or 6 pages, and a cover and some concept art and things. Sold it through the crowdfunding on that, and the crowdfunding actually paid for the time to produce it.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, you got to do it that way a lot of times. But it was really, really great that Mac had the, you know, the wherewithal from, you know, selling the Gorgo figures and everything to pay for all this in advance, so that when people back this on Zoop, it's not, you know, anything left to chance. It's like it's done.
Yeah.
And that's always reassuring for the people backing it. You know.
Yeah. And Zoop is a great platform for the comics. Like you said, we've funded a couple on there so far. We're big fans of Kickstarter, Zoop, Indiegogo, and but
actually, I'm working with a company, a tarot company. I do some cards for them. They do a set with all sorts of different fantasy artists every, you know, several months. They'll put out a new themed deck, and they just are doing one I didn't have to do any work for, because it's the sort of greatest hits. They've been doing it for 10 years, so they're doing cards from all the different 10 years, and I'm on one of them. And they've switched over from Kickstarter to backer kit. That used to be just something that was a adjunct to, you know, you've done your Kickstarter, now you go on backer kit to do things. But they're doing their own crowdfunding now, and
that's pretty cool. I always thought it was
that.
like, yeah. Huh.
Yeah,
I
always
had
thought
no
Kickstarter
idea.
and
backer kit were like side by side with each other. Yeah, I just feel like comics do better on Zoop and Kickstarter. Indiegogo, like the few that I've tried to support on there, I just feel like it just doesn't have the audience, or I don't know, there's something that deters people from going there.
I've done movies on Indie. I feel like they usually do good on movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, like a couple of comic book projects, I feel like the audience isn't there for on that website.
Yeah.
This backer kit campaign fully funded, I think, $63,000 in like 3 days. So backer kit's doing pretty good. I was surprised.
I gotta check that out. Backer, I had no clue they had their own thing going on. Backer kit.
Yeah. So I was a little pleasantly surprised with that one. Like I say, I didn't have to lift a finger. They just used a piece of art I already did. But they're great folks. It's 78 Tarot, it's called. They've been doing it for years.
Pretty cool. I'm gonna check
Give
those
them a
out.
why not? But I think Zoop's going to be fantastic. A friend of mine did a book through Zoop. It's called Remembering Andy Xenon, and yeah, he had really good things to say about them. And he got me in touch with the guys from Zoop maybe a year and a half ago, and we talked about, they said, well, what's the project you want to do? And I said, well, I'm working on this thing with Mac, but unfortunately we'd already completed it, and they didn't want to do a project that had already been completed. So we, put them on hold. And so when we were looking for something for Gorgo, they were one of the people we spoke to. And I think they put together by far the best, the most, attractive package for us.
No, that I think it's gonna be great for you guys. And I know you said May 28th is the launch date.
May 23rd.
Oh, 23rd.
So exactly
23rd. All right, perfect.
Thursday.
And about how long is the campaign gonna run?
I believe it's for 60 days, so that'll go until July.
All right, perfect.
And then I'm assuming they'll ship probably August or late August, early September.
Mm-hmm. So you can check on Zoop when it's coming up. They'll be publicizing it, and obviously check on Max Titanic Creations. Various social media. He's everywhere.
Definitely sign up for the email list there. Is there going to be do they have pre-launch on Zoop for email lists? Or I know you have emails on Titanic Creations, so that's definitely a place for everybody to go to sign up for email newsletters.
And then they should be adding the coming soon tab on Zoop. Soon, the Gorgo should be going up there. I just am finishing up a few things for them so they can get it all up there. But that should be going up beginning of next month, and then we'll be posting that on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, the like, so you guys can get over there and sign up for their mailing list, so that you can be notified when it goes live.
Awesome. This is going to be some awesome stuff to look forward to, and I know you even have the Titanicus figure coming back in July. Is that July? Or is that later in the year, in the fall?
That should go up. My guess is that'll probably go up for pre-order in August, as July is going to be Pulgasari month. So that's going to be the big one. It goes up. We're going to be unveiling it and the Titanicus figure at G-Fest this year. So
nice.
Make sure to, if you guys are going to be there, make sure to stop by. I'm very friendly in person. I swear I don't bite. And you're going to see the big Titanicus costume, which is
nice.
It's always it's always a great attraction and makes for good pictures to share on Instagram and Facebook. But yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, do you plan on hitting any other conventions? We've never been to G-Fest ourselves.
So this year, due to family sickness, I wasn't able to sign up for as many conventions just because I had to be located here in Colorado. So G-Fest is going to be the only one we do this year, but usually we do about 10. Last year, me and Patrick actually did a Monster Palooza last year, which went
nice.
really well, and
that was really great.
But yeah, usually we try to go both coasts. We did Orlando, Washington, Columbus, Chicago, San Francisco, and then LA for Monster Palooza. So we hit basically every town. Hopefully Denver Comic Con will eventually let us come as a vendor, but cool. I digress.
Cool. Yeah. No. Well, I'm hoping the family's all good now. Hope everyone's doing well and getting better.
Yeah. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys spending your time with us. It's much appreciated and giving us all this information about the upcoming comic book and other Titanic Creation projects that are really upcoming. Really appreciate it.
And we'll absolutely be sharing everything out. We cannot wait to be cheering you guys on for this campaign.
Sure. Thank you. Well, I really appreciate you guys, having us on and being so supportive of our work. It's been really great. It means a lot. Thanks.
Yeah, and like you said, we really appreciate what you guys are doing for the community, bringing Gorgo into the spotlight. All these kaiju, your Soul Wars universe is incredible. We love all your original kaiju, and we can't wait to see this universe grow and what you do with it. See what you do with it.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
All right, I think that about will be linking down below all their socials and wherever you can find them, and we'll definitely, like we just said, we'll be sharing out the campaign.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Bye.
All right.